Last week, if you were here or joining us in some way or another, we were looking at the 7 signs of John to lead up to Easter. Because the 7 signs of John are John building a case that Jesus is who he says he is. And he builds in significance with each of the signs that he takes. The 7th sign is the raising of Lazarus. The raising of Lazarus. Some people say there is an 8th sign, and that's Jesus' own resurrection. And then this week we've begun to look at the accounts of John following the resurrection. And today we are going to look at Thomas. Known for generations as the doubter. Does he deserve that title? I wonder. Is it a fair description? Just think for a moment. I'm not going to ask for any kind of feedback or comment, but just think for a moment. What is doubt? If you had to, if you had an exam question, define doubt, what would your answer be? Define doubt. It's quite tricky when you come to it, isn't it? We kind of all know what doubt is, but when we have to define it, actually it's not so easy to find words for it. I looked it up in the dictionary, and the root of doubt is Latin, dubitare. Sounds a bit like dubious, doesn't it? I guess that's where we get dubious from. And it means to hesitate, to waver. Is that how you thought of doubt? Hesitating, wavering? That kind of, I think I believe you, I'm not quite sure, shall I, shan't I? That kind of wavering, shall I, shan't I? Do you think of shall I, shan't I as doubt? Or is it more like indecision? Is indecision doubt? The dictionaries and psychologists say that doubt is a mental state in which the mind is suspended between 2 or more things that contradict. And you don't know which way you're going to go. Black is white, white is black. Which way am I going to go? And I did see a question online, is doubt an emotion? Is doubt an emotion, do you think? Would you call it an emotion? I think it creates emotion in us. I'm not sure that I would call it an emotion. I think it creates emotion, and often that emotion is negative, isn't it? Most of us, I think, probably would not find doubt a positive influence on our lives. Would you say that? If you're going through a period of doubt, it doesn't feel like it's a positive experience. I think the problem is that for many of us, we've grown up with the belief that doubt is a weakness, particularly in Christian spiritual terms. Would that be true for you? That doubt is a weakness, and if you say to somebody, they go, you mustn't doubt, you must believe. Yeah? Have you had that experience? You must believe. And that actually, doubt is a lack of faith. Has anybody heard that? You mustn't doubt. It's a lack of faith to doubt. I don't think it is. I don't think it is. So, but the effect of it is that we shy away from doubt because it makes us feel vulnerable. And if we are questioning, gosh, am I lacking faith here? Then that's a weakness that we don't want to allow in ourselves because, we've grown up that it's a weakness. However, doubt can be a powerful energy. If you think about all the scientists down through the years that have kind of gone between, is this right? Is this right? Which is, I'm going to pursue this until I find out exactly what's right here. We would not have half the life-changing discoveries that we've got. If the doctors had not questioned in the way that they did, then we would not have the understanding of anatomy that we've got. We would not have the understanding that our brains are these amazingly complex organs. It would be water-based mush that the Egyptians got rid of when they mummified their kings. And our heart would be the source of all emotion and energy, not the powerful organ that pumps the life force around our bodies. The questioning that scientists have gone through gives us great, great understandings. So, back to Thomas. Was he a doubter? Let's see. I'm going to read from John chapter 20, verses 24 to 29. Now Thomas, also known as Didymus, one of the 12, was not with the disciples when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands, and put my finger where the nails were, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe." A week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. Though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here, see my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe." Thomas said to him, "My Lord and my God." Then Jesus told him, "Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." John's the only gospel writer that really tells us anything about Thomas. We hear Thomas's words in John. We only see his name mentioned in the other gospels. What do we know about him? Well, we know he was a twin. We don't know who his twin was, whether he was a disciple or among the followers, we don't know. What we do know is that after the death of Lazarus, as Jesus was on his way to see Mary and Martha, he tells the disciples, "Lazarus has died, but we'll go to him." And Thomas goes, "Let us also go that we might die with him." Is that doubt? That seems to me to be more of courage than doubt. Maybe loyalty, a bit pessimistic maybe, but Thomas the brave maybe. Let's go with him even though it could cost us our lives. The next time we hear Thomas's words, again in John, is Jesus is talking about going ahead, this is before he died, going ahead and preparing a place for them. And that they know the place that he's going to. Enigmatic Jesus as always. "You know the place that I'm going. My Father's house has many rooms." And Thomas says, "We don't know where you're going. How can we know the way?" It's a serious question, and Jesus takes it seriously. And then Jesus says, "I am the way, the truth, the life." If Thomas hadn't done that, would we have had Jesus' answer? I don't know. Is that Thomas the doubter? We don't know where you're going, Lord. Or is he a truth seeker? I think he's a truth seeker. I think he wants to know. So in the few instances of Thomas's words, we haven't seen much evidence of doubt so far. When Jesus appeared to the disciples the first time in the locked room, Thomas isn't there. So when he hears that the disciples have seen Jesus, does he say, I doubt that very much? No, he doesn't, it appears. He says, unless I see it for myself, I want evidence. I don't want to get carried away by your experience. I want my experience for myself. I don't want to rely on yours. It's too big a deal, this, not to have that personal experience for myself. I don't want your encounter. I want my own. Does that sound like a doubter? I don't think it does. I think this is a man who is seeking truth and is not content for it to come from other people. He wants it direct from the Lord for himself. When Jesus comes, he says to Thomas, touch me and see, touch me and know, find the truth for yourself. In our translation, he says, stop doubting and believe. Not a very good translation. More accurately, Jesus said, don't be unbelieving, but believing. That's not the same as doubt, is it? Don't be unbelieving, but believing. Here I am. The evidence is before you. Make up your mind on the evidence that you see. I don't think Jesus is accusing Thomas of doubt. His response to Thomas is only one of welcome and invitation. He's inviting Thomas, as he does us, to believe and have that encounter for himself. It's a journey to belief that he's encouraging Thomas to walk along. And how does Thomas respond to that evidence? He says, my Lord and my God. That's a personal revelation, isn't it? It's a personal encounter. It's a statement of belief, actually. He's asked the question, he's sought the truth, and he's got it. We could learn a lot from that. I wonder how many of us down through the years have kind of had a spiritual life, a faith that is based on other people's experiences rather than our own. I don't think Jesus wants us to have blind faith that's shallow. I think Jesus wants us to ask questions, to be truth seekers. He wants us to grow in faith and maturity. How do we grow? We ask the hard questions sometimes. Who among us would believe the adverts that we see on social media that say, this is a wonder drug. Take this for a week and you'll lose 2 stone. Click here to buy it. Would you believe that? And would you want to be called a doubter because you don't? No. No. We would call that person somebody who's wise and discerning, wouldn't we? Somebody who wants to know a little bit more about perhaps what that wonder drug is, so that they can decide whether it would be appropriate to take it or not. I think we should encourage ourselves to dig deep, to ask difficult questions, because it makes us stronger. It doesn't weaken our faith. Like we believe God heals today, yes? So why doesn't he? Why aren't we all perfectly and wholly well if God heals today? Like you, I know bits of answers, I don't know the whole answer. Does that make me a doubter? Does that make me a doubter that God heals today? No. But it leaves me with mystery. It leaves me with that tension of I have to hold things in balance here. I think we should find inspiration from Thomas, who is a truth seeker. He didn't want somebody else's truth. He wanted the truth for himself. But maybe you're sitting there and you have got doubts. And we go through times of life where we have doubts. Doubts can be corrosive. They can be undermining. And the trouble with doubts is that it lets in that little voice that says, see, you didn't really believe it, did you? You don't really think God can do that, do you? And when we listen to that voice, that's a downward path, isn't it? We need to listen to the voice of the one who died and rose again and is prepared to go to Thomas and say, look, here's the evidence. So if you have doubts that are undermining, maybe we need to pray that those doubts, you are released from those doubts. Because I don't think doubt is the opposite of faith. I don't think doubt is lack of faith. Doubt is questioning. And questioning leads us on a journey where our belief can be stronger and stronger in the one who loves you, invites you into that throne room, just so that he can have one-to-one time with you. Thank God. Amen.